Hi, and welcome to the first video of Old Time Knowledge. My 2020 Victory Garden is coming along really well. I've got all kinds of things growing in there, corn and tomatoes and squash and peppers and strawberries and beans and peppers and all kinds of things. It's just been such a joy to do this during this lockdown we've been having. But one plant that has just really been blowing my mind is the collards. So what better thing to do than to make a video about how to make collards with cornmeal dumplings. You're going to need these ingredients. Collards, more than will fit in your pot uncooked. Seasoning and meat, I like to use ham hocks or streak of lean. Plain cornmeal, white, yellow, it doesn't matter on the texture. And salt and pepper you're going to season to taste. We're not measuring anything. Okay, so first, ham hocks. This is what a ham hock looks like if you've never seen one before. You're just going to take the ham hock and you're going to put it in a pot that's filled probably about a third of the way, maybe halfway with water. That's going to give the flavor to the collards when you cook them. Okay, once you've cooked the pork for a couple of hours, the ham hock, it should be broken down. The meat should be totally falling off the bone. And in fact, I removed the bone and the fat. And so now I'm going to add the collards. Okay, the big mess of collards that I had earlier is in the pot now. And as you can see, it goes all the way to the top of the pot. But it's going to cook down pretty quickly. And by the time it's done cooking, I imagine the collards will only go up to about a third of the way for the whole pot. You can see how much it's going down already. This has not even been in here 5 minutes. But that water is hot. It'll just wilt the leaves right down. And this is going to be so good when it's done. So this is it. They're in the pot. And now they just need to cook probably about an hour until they're nice and tender. I've just put the lid back on to let it finish cooking. Look here. See how this is just bubbling away? I say it's probably got about another half hour to go. But before it gets done, I'll be making some cornmeal dumplings to go in here and probably cutting up a few potatoes. I'm not sure how much time had passed, probably about another half hour for this next part. But one thing I'm going to tell you is the way we cook is, it's kind of imprecise. We do a lot of things by how something looks or how it feels or how it tastes and things like that. This is why you'll a lot of times hear grandmothers, if you ask them for a recipe, say, well, I don't really have a recipe. Well, they have sort of guidelines that they go by, but not maybe a precise recipe like exactly 1 cup of this, exactly 20 minutes for that. Really, you've just got to learn to roll with it. Okay, these are about done, and the steam is making the lens all foggy. But now it's time for me to mix up some cornmeal dumplings and add them to the pot so they can cook the rest of the way and be ready to serve when I take up the collards.
Okay.
Okay, so I have this cornmeal dumpling, just cornmeal, salt, and water. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it into little patties like this. And then I'm going to just lay it on top. And I'm going to do this with all of them until it's all gone. And I don't know how much cornmeal this is, and I don't know how much water this is, but it should look like this. When you mix it, you just mix it until it's kind of this consistency, and it holds together. And you can taste it to make sure it's salty enough, and if not, add some salt. Will you get it in the pot? Okay. And this is going to be the last one. It'll be just a little baby dumpling. Okay. I'm going to just put it right there. And I'm going to put the lid on it and let it cook for about another 15 minutes until I check and the dumplings are firm and done. That's it. Okay, I've got to interrupt this cooking to tell you something important. Do not use self-rising cornmeal to make your dumplings. You're going to use plain, white or yellow, fine or medium grain, that doesn't matter, but do not use self-rising cornmeal because your dumplings are going to be a mess. They're not going to turn out right if you try to use self-rising cornmeal. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, it's been about, well, between 15 and 20 minutes. I'm not sure exactly. Let's look and see. Okay, we're going to test to see if they're done. Yep, they're pretty firm. That's how you can tell. So now I'm just going to take them up. I'm going to put the dumplings on a plate. I'm going to take the collards out of the pot liquor and chop them up. And I'll show you how everything looks when it's done. Okay, real quick, this is the important part. The dumplings, they need some pepper. So I'm sprinkling some pepper on them now so they'll taste good. I like a lot of pepper on my dumplings. If you have like babies or toddlers that's going to be eating them, you don't want to put so much pepper probably, but you just be the judge. Okay, when I first take them out of the pot, they look like this. And you can see the ham hock, the meat is still in the pot. I'm going to get that in a minute. But first, I'm going to get my chopper and I'm going to chop this up and drain out excess pot liquor. I'll reserve that on the side in case anybody wants to put some over their collards. Hang on just a minute, bear with me. Making this video was kind of spur of the moment. When you know you need to drain the collards, how can you do that while holding the camera? You can't. But it's important, otherwise you're chopping your collards into a bowl full of liquid. You're going to drain the collards, but this is important. Do not drain the collards directly from the pot in a colander right down the sink for 3 reasons. 1, you want to reserve the pot liquor for use later. I'll explain this in a minute. 2, it's generally a bad idea to pour super hot liquid right down the sink because it's bad for the seal around your drain and for your pipes. 3, there is a lot of fat still in this broth from seasoning meat that we boiled for so long. Yes, we pulled out the big pieces of fat, but this is still a very greasy broth, and over time, pouring grease down your drain can cause some serious pipe clogging issues. Just trust me, don't do it. Okay, so once you've drained the liquid from your collards back into the pot, you're going to chop the collards with something like this. Okay, they always used to make the choppers with the wooden handles like this, but I've been seeing, I guess they make them just solid metal. Whatever kind you have is fine. The main thing is you just want to chop the collards really good so that you can get a decent amount on your fork, because if you're working with giant pieces of collards and you haven't chopped them, it's going to be a mess trying to eat it. Okay, now I want to talk about some serving options you have. In addition to just making cornmeal dumplings, if you have any of that dough left over, because remember, we didn't talk about amounts, I just showed you the texture that you're looking for of combining the cornmeal and the water and the salt. So you can make as much or as little of that as you want, but if you do have dough left over, you can actually fry the cornmeal dough if you prefer, so you can have some cornbread fritters. Sometimes people like to dip their fried cornbread into some of that reserved pot liquor and sop it up that way. Sometimes people just don't like dumplings, and I will never understand that, but they might like some fried cornbread better. Boiled potatoes. Another option is boiling some cut up potatoes. You can just put them in towards the end like you would with the cornmeal dumplings. You're going to have to use your good judgment though about deciding what can fit in your pot and how you want to do it. In the past, when I've done this and I've made both dumplings and potatoes, I don't have an enormous pot, so sometimes I'll actually take my collards out when they're completely done, just put them aside, keep them covered so they'll stay hot, and I'll cook my potatoes and dumplings in the reserved pot liquor for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll take everything up and serve it then. Sometimes you just don't have a pot big enough for everything, and that's okay. It'll all still come together and be delicious. Another thing about boiling potatoes with this is you can actually serve the boiled potatoes as they are. We normally will sprinkle a little bit of pepper on them. Or you can put them aside and use them to make some potato salad. There's just a lot of different options. Speaking of other options, the last thing I want to mention is that you can use this same exact technique for cooking fresh string beans right out of your garden. Lots of different vegetables can be made with some dumplings. We might make dumplings like this to go with any stewed vegetable or meat, especially chicken and dumplings. I want to mention for us, there's chicken and pastry, which is what's made with wheat flour. And then there's chicken and dumplings. For us, dumplings are distinctly something made with cornmeal. So that's just a little bit of extra information about things you can do with this. Okay, I finished chopping the collards. I poured off the broth, or the pot liquor as we call it. I've pulled out the ham meat and put it with the collards. And I've got the dumplings right over there. And so now it's just time to enjoy a plate. This is a typical way we enjoy them. Some collards, a little bit of that ham meat, a cornmeal dumpling, and some of that pot liquor drizzled over the top. It's so good. Now it's time to eat. One more thing I forgot to add. Sometimes we use vinegar or pepper vinegar, drizzled a little bit on top of the collards as an extra condiment. Okay, that's all. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make collards with cornmeal dumplings, which is a very traditional dish here in Eastern North Carolina. Our family loves it, and I hope your family will too. Please visit oldtimeknowledge.com and subscribe to this channel for more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.